Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Tech Showdown. My name is Kevin, this is my co-host Teddy, and today I'm going to be telling you guys the difference between X370 and B350. So we'll be using this guy, the MSI Tomahawk B350, just to show you some examples and use it to kind of explain all the points I'm going to make, because only like 1 million of you guys have asked me to review this motherboard, which I will be doing very, very soon. So let's jump into it then and talk about what the X370 and B350 both have in common. So they both obviously take any AM4 CPU, any of the Ryzen CPUs, that's the socket right up here, socket AM4, so your Ryzen 7s, your Ryzen 5s, and your Ryzen 3 CPUs, they'll obviously go into these motherboards, both of them. Threadripper will not though, so that's something to keep in mind. That will require an X399 motherboard. Now, they both also allow for overclocking. Since all Ryzen CPUs are unlocked, that means that you can overclock them on either an X370 or a B350 motherboard. If you go down to the 320 though, you will not be able to overclock, so that's something to keep in mind. And both of them support RAID 0, 1, and 10. But many of you guys won't really care about that too much. Oh, some of you might, so yeah, that's good to know anyways. So let's talk about the differences between the two, the X370 and the B350 then. And let's start with PCI 3.0 lanes, because that's something important. So if you don't understand, basically, because I'm trying to make this video easy for everybody to understand, this lane right here, you see this PCIe 3.0 lane right here. This is where you want to be putting your graphics card into to get the best performance out of it. You could chuck it in this one down here and it would probably still go alright, but ideally you're going to be wanting it in this one up here. So basically with X370 you'll have a 1x16 PCIe 3.0 slot, like one like this. However, you can also run 2x8 PCIe 3.0 slots, which means if you have 2 NVIDIA graphics cards or 2 AMD graphics cards, you can run them in either SLI or Crossfire and they will work just fine on your X370 motherboard. B350 here though, on the other hand, you still get the single x16 3.0 slot, so it's going to be just as good with a single graphics card. However, it will not support SLI. Now you can get away with Crossfire on a B350. However, it's not really ideal. Some motherboards do support it, but it's not ideal since most of the time it will automatically downgrade to 2x8 PCIe 2.0, and that's not really ideal when you think about it. It's like a halved and then halved again. So yeah, not really that ideal. If you're going to be running a multi-GPU setup, you're much better off going with X370. But the vast majority of you guys will just be running a single graphics card, and that's what all tech YouTubers recommend. You're much better off with a single, more powerful graphics card than 2 less powerful graphics cards. In that case, you're just as well off with the B350 as you are with the X370. So let's talk about USB ports then. That's something to talk about. So you guys might be a little bit confused. Well, I'll tell you the specs first and then I'll explain why some of you might be confused there. So both of them support 2 USB 3.1 Gen 2 ports. However, the B350 here only supports 2 USB 3.0 ports to the X370 6. However, both of them still support 6 USB 2.0 ports. SATA is also a little bit trimmed down. You only get 4 SATA ports on B350 compared to 6 on X370. But you might be confused. You go look for a B350 motherboard and you'll see that it has 4 or 5 USB 3.0 ports. And you'll be like, hey, what? Kevin just said it only takes 2. So I don't want it to be complicated, but basically take those numbers as like the minimum. And if they want to add extra, they still can. They'll just have to put a controller on the motherboard itself in order to allow for it, basically. And that's the best way to look at it. Those numbers are like the minimum that you can get away with on sort of like a bare bones motherboard. You'll never see less than those, but you can see more if they just want to add in controllers, and that goes for everything, you know, 2.0, 3.0, the whole shebang. So yeah, that is something I see a lot of people get confused over, and that's basically the reason why. So I hope that explains it for you guys. Now, when it comes to overclocking, as I said earlier, you can overclock on both the B350 and the X370 motherboards, but really you'll be much better off with the X370. Now, why is that? So the X370s in general will have better VRMs, they'll have more power phases, just better overall components really. And the X370s usually have more advanced BIOSes as well, which allows you to go in and change more things in there, basically, to give you, in theory, more stable and higher overclocks, in theory, if you know what you're doing. But you might be saying, well, I've seen plenty of people, overclock with B350s, and they achieved the same overclock on a B350 as they did on the X370. And that's very true. It is very possible. That's why I say it's in theory. You should get higher, more stable overclocks. The key word there is stability, stable. That's where you'll probably see the difference. They'll probably overclock just as high as each other, but say 4 gigahertz on the X370 might be much more stable than 4 gigahertz on the B350. Again, that is just in theory. So then who are these motherboards aimed at then? Who do I recommend them for? Because that's the most important question if you come to this video and you're deciding to get either an X370 or a B350 motherboard. So I'll put it this way. I have to generalize because there's so many different models of these motherboards and they come with so many different things. So in general, a B350 is going to be the better one for the vast majority of you guys out there, especially if you're only running a single GPU and you're only planning on running a single GPU for the foreseeable future. Also, if you're a person that doesn't require heaps of SATA or USB ports, it's also going to be a good motherboard. Just make sure you get a good B350. Now, the X370, that's going to be the one to go for if you're like an enthusiast, you want more overclocking options, you're going to be running multi-GPUs, maybe you use up heaps of ports, need heaps of SATA ports, things like that. You're just a more advanced user who really need or wants to take full advantage of all of those extra features that come with the X370 board. So the X370 is more like the flagship board with more of the stuff on it, where the B350 is more the value for money motherboard. And so with that in mind, I would say the B350 is the better one to go for the vast majority of users out there. Now, I thank you all for watching this video. In the comment section down below, maybe try to explain some of the other differences, anything I missed, or things you think you could explain better than I have in this video. Just help everybody out, because there's still quite a bit of confusion I see out there with people deciding whether to get X370 or B350. So let's make it a discussion, I should say. There's going to be much more showdowns and motherboard reviews coming right up, so definitely subscribe to Tech Showdown if you haven't already. Like the video, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.